What do you get when Emma Roberts and Aquafina get thrown into a sci-fi dystopian refinement school for wayward girls? Lots of surprises, twists, and Mila Jovovich to boot. On this special episode of the Con Guys Show, we are privileged to have Alice Waddington in the studio with us, the talented director of the Sundance breakout hit Paradise Hills, which just opened up in theaters this past weekend. Thank you. We're going to have a great show this week.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's The Con Guy Comic-Con Prep Show.
Welcome to the Con Guy Comic-Con Prep Show, your home for insider news, interviews, and opinions on Comic-Con's movies, popular culture, fandoms, and growing up. We're fans, you're fans, let's be friends. Thank you, everybody. Speaking of friends, we have a great room full of people that you are our new best friend because we've been talking with Alice. She loves cosplay, she loves sci-fi, she loves everything we love. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show today.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Who else do we have in the room today?
Well, I'm Cheeseman with a mustache. Actually, Cheeseman on the couch. I do have my temporary mustache for Halloween, which started this weekend, and then will also be this week. So, got to keep the mustache because I'm Hopper from Stranger Things. But Cheeseman on the couch with theconguyderek.com.
And I'm BenKliewer, and I get
Applause, applause.
It's like I'm on a sitcom.
Mr. Hollywood star.
Oh, it's true. I was also going to be Hopper for Halloween, and but I had to shave because I was on set this week.
Very exciting.
And they wanted me clean shaven. And then we were going to go to a Halloween party on Saturday night, but my poor wife, Brianna, who I love so much, got a terrible case of food poisoning. And so we had to stay home. We weren't able to make it to the party, and it's just been a crummy weekend for her. So I feel bad, and here I am abandoning her.
We're so sorry. But she got a chance to see the film, though.
She did, but that's the thing. We didn't go to the party on Saturday night, so we got to watch Alice's wonderful film, which we both enjoyed thoroughly.
Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
Alice's Wonderful. Alice in Wonderland is what you just called it.
Wonderful film. I said Alice in Wonderful together, so
But
there you go.
I just went there. Yeah.
before we go any further, we do want to find out a little bit about Alice for people who may not have heard of you before. But you've been in the business for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm an old lady. You know, I started.
Yeah, you're so old.
I'm 21 now. You're 29 one. So I'm 29 now, and I started to be on set when I was 16 years old. And I began working on like music videos and films and ads, roughly around that age. So yeah, I've been also a team head for a while.
And you were you were working in film, but you were also working in photography and costuming and cosplay and all kinds of stuff. Like your interests are all over the place, which is great. How did your parents keep a hold of all that?
I mean, they were very interested in what I was doing. I have to say that my mom was very supportive. She's a child psychologist, so she was always like, "This is great, honey. Keep doing it." No, she was wonderful. She used the chance with cosplaying to teach me how to sew basically, and that was really useful to me. And also, she supported my nerdiness. You know, like they've been loving genre film. They've been loving horror film since they were really young. My dad had actually a revolutionary film club when he was
Really?
at uni. Yeah, during the Franco dictatorship, he would play films that were banned, that were British and French films. So we watched
Nice.
Blade Runner together for the first time.
Wow,
So,
a revolutionary in our midst. Look at
There you
this.
go.
Yes.
This is fantastic.
He was such a hippie. Yeah.
So, you also have a film, and we're going to be talking. And for those of you who are tuning in, we're introducing you right now to Alice Waddington. And towards the second half of the show, we're going to talk all about Paradise Hills, her brand new film, which is in theaters right now. Comes out on digital and on demand November 1st, which is this coming Friday. So make sure you guys pay attention and make sure you download or go to the theaters and see that film. Go to the theaters and see it. It's a great film. So, you also, first of all, my question is, can you tell us a little bit about where you're from and your journey?
Yeah, so I'm from Bilbao, which is a small town in the north of Spain. Most of my family has a rural origin, so my parents were kind of like some of the first in their family to begin working in the city. And as I was saying, mom's a psychologist, dad's a teacher. And I just love film since I was very young. And we were just talking about how many features I watched with them when I was younger. The first time that I saw A Clockwork Orange, it was with them. The first time that I saw Blade Runner, as I was saying, the first time that I saw Metropolis, which is my mom's favorite film, it was all together.
Metropolis is your mom's favorite film.
I know, it's kind of cruel to play that for a 12-year-old. She still did.
Clockwork Orange. I'm singing.
How old were you when you saw Clockwork Orange?
16, yeah.
Okay,
And she
that's
was
a little bit
like,
better.
she was like, this isn't as radical as I remember.
And Blade Runner too. I mean, you're naming off like the biggies up there. Yeah.
And yeah, they play them all for me. Again, because I was pretty nerdy and I was cosplaying since I was 12 years old, I got to watch Akira when I was very young, and I got to watch Ghost in the Shell. There are some pictures up there somewhere in the internet of me cosplaying Motoko Kusanagi when I was that age. So yeah, definitely a lot of that. Lots of Korean and Japanese manga.
Very cool.
All right. Well, we're going to jump into a. Oh wait.
One second.
Yes.
It says here that your first film was a short called Disco
Yes.
Inferno, and I desperately want to know about
Oh
it.
yeah, tell us about that.
Sure. So, I couldn't go to film school because my parents couldn't afford it. So I basically studying advertising, and I went to Madrid to start working. I wanted to work in some agencies, and I realized that being paid like $180 a month wasn't a great idea.
Wow.
It was like, it was a financial crisis. It was 2018 when I was 18. So I met Nacho Vigalondo while I was doing that, and like at the same time working like retail and other stuff like that. I met Nacho Vigalondo, and he played Judex by George Franju for me, which is a 1965 horror / fantasy film. And I realized that masked Avenger features and series have existed since longer than I had known. And he played Le Vampire as well for me, which is like a 1920s serial as well, in that style of like masked Avenger lady. And it was really fascinating, and I wanted to like pay homage to that while still bringing hopefully something kind of new. So I did Disco Inferno 2015, and I brought a project called Paradise Hills to the Fantastic Market in Austin as well after that, and we won like Best Directing for Disco that year, and then that project sort of won Second Best Feature Project of the market there, so we began developing it.
Yeah. Can you tell us just briefly, what is Disco Inferno about?
So it is about a wary Helminian that's like on a mission to rescue her boss. It's very sort of giallo / 1960s, 70s horror and fantasy.
Argento?
Sort of Dario Argento, Lucio Fulci, that sort of world of like, Mediterranean actors dubbed to English. That was our vibe.
Oh, nice.
Folks, we have an intelligent filmmaker in our midst today. This is great. Well, we're going to go over a little bit of news here for the rest of us, and then we're going to jump back to Paradise Hills, which is your big film, which is just opening up this weekend. So, Ben, there are a couple of events that people can get involved with, right?
Exactly. I don't know whether I'm at 2 or 1 here, but in keeping with the name of the show, Con Guy, let's go ahead and cover these, and then we'll get back to Alice. Bulletin board this week. Here are our cons that are coming up. Oh, I'm on this one. Here are our cons coming up. November 1st through 3rd, the Big Easy Con in New Orleans, Louisiana. Also November 1st through 3rd, Rhode Island Con in Providence, Rhode Island. November 8th through 10th, Grand Rapids Comic Con in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And November 16th and 17th, New England Super Mega Fest Comic Con. That's a mouthful. Yeah. That's in Farmingham, Massachusetts. So there you go.
And also just a little bit of news about the big one here on the West Coast, San Diego Comic Con. The returning registration for SDCC 2020 happened on October 12th, so that is closed. If you did not get in then, you will have to wait until general registration opens up. We don't know when that will be yet. Press registration ends this coming Friday, November 1st.
Did you hear that, Brad?
Yeah, Brad.
You gotta register by then.
I wonder if Brad's actually watching right now.
He commented.
He did he really already?
Yeah. He said,
Nice.
"Oh, Ben."
You're not sitting there watching
Ben.
Wendy Williams, Brad?
Oh, Ben.
You're not.
Yeah, probably.
Is he watching Wendy right now?
He's probably switching back and forth.
Also, registration is now open for exhibitors, small press, fan tables, and artist alley. Also, returning volunteer registration ended October 7th. October was a busy month for registrations, but daily registrations are still happening. So that's our little bit of Comic-Con news that we have. Is what is Brad commenting on?
He just said, "Oh, Ben."
Okay.
That's all he said so far.
He's got a mad crush on me. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Have you ever been to a Comic-Con?
Yeah.
Oh,
of
yeah.
course. Yeah,
She
yeah.
cosplayed, man. Of course she's been
Oh,
to
that's great.
Comic-Cons
So,
before.
yes. And this was actually before it was sort of in fashion to do photo shoots for cosplay. So we sort of, the way that those cosplays live was you went there and you were there and you were just excited to be there. So my first con was when I was like 12 and a half, I want to say. It was a local one in the Basque Country in Bilbao, actually. It was called Jornadas de Motucora. It's like
Oh, that one.
from my yes, of course. Can you imagine? It would blow my mind. And it was from my sort of comic books club that I was at.
You were in a
And I was-
comics books club?
yeah, when I was like 12 something, 12 and a half. Yeah, it was basically like a way for all of us to get together from all over Spain, essentially. But there was a cosplay context. And actually, we were talking about Akira earlier. The first Akira DVD that I ever won was at a cosplay context. I was cosplaying, I can't remember her name, but the protagonist of the Charat, which is like this sort of like made cafe thing that I loved when I was younger. Yeah, it was a comic book. Yeah,
That's awesome.
That is great. Now, we are going to jump into, we're going to talk about Paradise Hills, which is the whole reason that you are here with us today. And let me do a little bit of a little description of the film. And then I know Ben was texting me about how much he liked it, so I'll let Ben kind of take some of it from there. All right. Uma, that's your lead character. She wakes up in an apparently idyllic school for young ladies called Paradise. This is on IMDb.
Nice.
It's meant to reform her and her new friends, but there is a darker secret hidden behind its walls. And that's all we're going to give away right now. Anyways, it has a pretty remarkable cast. Emma Roberts, Awkwafina, Mila Jovovich, as we said. And who else is in the... Oh, I have it right here. I guess I could have...
Daniel McDonald as well, Isa Gonzalez. So, yeah, I love them so much.
Yeah.
You want me to talk about them? Of
Yeah.
course. So my experience working with them was astonishing because this is my first film, you know? And as a first feature filmmaker, it was just a privilege. And every single one of them brought something that was memorable to the character. For example, Danielle, who was fresh off of her Sundance success with Patty Cakes, does this like incredible action scenes on top of her dramatic skills, which like when they end, the crew just sort of spontaneously applauds. They're so thrilled. Emma was the second one to sign on, and she has this bravery that sort of like grips you in the beginning and like doesn't let go until the end. And
Emma's
she has
fantastic.
Lots
She's
of charisma, lots of charisma. I love her. Eiza, obviously, with her being Latina, I connect with her because that's part of my heritage, and she has these elements in common with her professional life of wanting to do something creatively that wasn't necessarily what she was being allowed to make, that I also was interested in. And Mila, of course, is such a character actress, and she sort of has such a good time in this film, and it's sort of wrong for me to say, but like it's one of my favorite roles that she has played like in the last years. I'm really fond of
Oh,
her.
that's not wrong for you to say. That's
Yeah.
perfect for you to say. Yeah.
But she enjoys it so much, and there is so much joy in what she's doing there.
We have
She's
some pictures up there.
yeah, she's just having a blast, and I appreciate it. And there's also a Awkwafina who wasn't sure about playing a dramatic role necessarily because she was fresh off of shooting Crazy Rich Asians, but it wasn't out yet. And she was about to shoot the farewell, in which obviously she does such a dramatic role. Yeah. So it was, when we saw her on set, it was like, what were you worried about? Like, you were such a natural, just so good at this. I don't know. I could be here for hours talking about it, honestly.
Before we go any further, though, I do want to introduce somebody very important to the program, Ryan Nilsson, who is in the booth with us. Hello, Ryan.
Hey, guy.
Hey, how are we doing? So excited to have Alice in studio right now. I'm just
Thank you.
excited about any up-and-coming filmakers, especially with a film like this. I mean, this is such a special... You got an incredible cast. It's just really refreshing to see. I'm really curious to hear more about just the pitch process and how you got all these people. Like, I know Awkwafina's really had a heck of a past year and a half with Crazy Rich Asians and all of her success this year. I'm just really curious, what was the process like when you're pitching this movie? You're trying to convince people to get on.
Yeah.
And what were like the trials and tribulations with that?
That is such a good question, and I feel like that is something that first-time filmmakers always want to know, and screenwriters, and it's hard, to get your foot in the door. I guess that just to recover the story that I was talking about earlier, when I was at Fantastic Fest, I was just privileged enough to meet Guillermo del Toro, and that was kind of the fairy tale aspect of all of this, because I had sent him the short, but he was like, he didn't answer, and I was instead of being worried about that, or instead of being self-conscious about it, I just sat by him like in the space that was reserved for artists at Fantastic. We both had films in a way there, so that was like a connection already. And I told him out of the blue, like, I sent you my shirt and you didn't answer.
You did not say that to him.
I was literally, it's so awful. Please don't do that to like Guillermo del Toro or any other stylish creators that you love. But like for some reason, I guess like I haven't drunk in like 6 years, but that was the moment in which I was drinking. So
There you go. Tell them the truth.
That was like
Liquid courage.
That was the
Yeah.
that was like the liquid courage of it. And I was like, listen, and he said he remembered actually, and he was like, oh, actually I saw it, but I was in this country and I didn't have this streaming service. Can you send it to me again? So I sent him the file. Of course, I was like, Guillermo del Toro's not gonna pirate my film, and I
Would have been a big compliment if he did.
I said, which, yeah, I will have honor. Like, just put it on Netflix. I talked to him about it. He liked it. He liked the references, and he was like, "I'm gonna introduce you to my manager and my agent," and so he did. And that was really the turn of all of it, because my manager and agent introduced me to my producers, to Nuria Valls and Adrián Guerra in Barcelona during Sitges, the Fantastic Film Festival, where the short also was. And we had the short in a very small category there, like a discovery one, and we just played for like 1,200 people, so it's been quite a change. And I met them. They liked the film. I brought Nacho Vigalondo into the project because he inspired the short, obviously, and they brought in Brian DeLeo, who works in the genre space as well, with Daniel Isn't Real, which is in festivals right now. And that was really the process until we started developing the story, and I was like, this is a thriller, this is a science fiction thriller, it has supernatural elements, we have to define the style. Okay, we have tropical science fiction thriller, then what else? Who do we love for this story? So basically the actors that I pitch for each role, like they're all in the film, in the sense that our favorite like 7 or 8 lists they're all there. And I just made this presentation because I come from concept art, like in advertising, in video games, and I just made this presentation for them, and they like it. It had references to other films, it had references for the direction of photography, it had just like a character guide for them not to get lost in it, and the concept pieces, I guess, maybe impress them, and they were like, we want to be in this world. And I was like, all right.
Hey, Ben, I know you said that the film really stuck out for you. You really enjoyed it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think with at least the types of films that I generally watch, I think the use of kind of the Alice in Wonderland visual and the references at times they're used a lot, and so anymore it takes a very controlled hand to make it effective, because everybody wants to use that kind of imagery. And once we started watching it and I started seeing the costumes and Mila Jovovich's character coming in, and I'm like, oh, this is Alice in Wonderland. But it's not like you guys didn't go in there and go, Alice in Wonderland, get it? Like, the imagery was just there. And it was really well done. I was really impressed with it.
I didn't get that till you just said this, and now,
Oh, yeah. How'd you not do? I mean, maybe I'm just, like, looking for
Stop
it. I
it.
don't know, but
He's going to say maybe he's just a little bit smarter.
maybe I'm smarter than you, Jim.
We'll take that. We'll take that.
It's not, guys. It's okay.
But I mean, even Mila's first scene, you walk in and she's, like, clipping roses and that sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, I can tell, like, I already kind of don't trust her a little bit, but like, but the costumes even really read that for me. And I wanted to ask, like, the costuming for this, it was just, the whole thing was shot visually, it was just stunning. My wife and I loved it, but
And they're both cosplayers, and they have lots of cosplay
Hey.
fans, so they go into detail with cosplay.
oh yeah,
so.
definitely. And
Nice.
and so the costuming was awesome. And then I also want to talk about where you shot this, because that
Yeah.
it was gorgeous. But the film was visually stunning. But so you were telling us before the show that you kind of did some scrapbooking, or not scrapbooking. What's the word I'm
that's
looking for?
fine.
Was it scrapbooking?
That's it, yeah.
For what you kind of wanted the visual of the costuming to look like.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about costume design and who
course.
helped out and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and just to answer your question about Mila, like her references, I would show her a lot of, like Delphine Seyrig in Daughters of Darkness, like a lot of Joan Crawford in the 1940s.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
I do this like really nerdy thing in which I put together a reel for each actress, and
Oh,
if
that's
we're
awesome.
pitching to Chinese actors, I will put together a reel just with Chinese actresses, and then like some other races, some other genders
that's
in
nice.
the end. But like at the same time, once they're cast, we go over all of these references so that they don't have to like watch the entire film. It's like, no, I don't like the entire film. I want these two scenes that you may love, so I put them together and like
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and I feel like actors enjoy that, and it sort of helps us be on the same page and be like, oh, you're taking this as seriously as I am, like
Yeah, I would love that.
yeah,
as an
like
actor.
if you take it right, because you're not like if you take all of these hours to make this real, and if you take like the time to write a backstory, which is obviously something that some actors want to do themselves. You just have to ask them. I have them, and I just like take them into account when I'm on set. But maybe some of them don't want them. Just like some actors, want notes during the first take, and some others don't. Or some actors
Right.
just want to be told what they're doing wrong. Quote unquote, it's not wrong, but like Mila, for example, is like that, and I feel like that's very related to her. For example, having a partner who is a director. She's like, only tell me what I do wrong, quote unquote.
Right.
Most actors obviously are not like that, and a lot of actors want like the first two takes to themselves, and like just experiment and try, and then maybe you can direct it. But anyway, yeah, sure, it's very important to be working with actors. And regarding the costumes, which are also part of the characterization, also part of
absolutely.
the character, also part of how well they can get into the the psyche, right, of the character. Especially our references were all over the place in a good way, like in a sort of very millennial way. Like nothing was sort of forbidden, like, oh, don't go there, please. No, it was more like, what do you like? Like, what do you want? What have you always wanted to make if you were creating like a colorful fantasy world? And we love, Donkey Skin by Jacques Demy. We love, for example, like European films is like a retelling of the fairy tale. And we loved the Draughtsman's Contract. We loved obviously like Logan's Run, obviously The Prisoner.
Did you say Logan's Run?
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a great callback.
Yeah.
And I love that she referenced The Prisoner, which is also awesome.
And a lot of the film is just like, how are we going to take these like hyper masculine, hyper sexy ideas of the 70s, like of what science fiction was like, or still is like in some ways, and how are we gonna like make something for like younger girls that maybe didn't grow up seeing themselves in those stories, and they also like have the right to do so. And this is a film I feel like that can be enjoyed by both men and women, and like young people, male or female. But at the same time, I really made it for like my younger self. I was a bullied kid that like escaped to these parallel universes, and like Lord of the Rings or like Never Ending Story, but couldn't see herself in those stories. So yeah, that's all part of what.
I love that.
And that's one thing I did want to talk about a little bit was like, there's on the surface, like let's just let everybody know, this is a very riveting tale about kind of like a refining school, a prep school for girls, wayward girls who, their parents or whomever have put them here to try to get them to be better.
Yeah.
Like in Emma's character, what's her character's name again?
Uma.
Uma. And Uma, her mom wants her to marry a guy that's apparently, from all intents and purposes, a really terrible person.
Slimy rich guy.
And she does not want to do it. She's already got her own boyfriend. She's got a life she wants to live, but so it's like this tug of war between what her parents want, what society wants, and what's on the outside. However, the movie goes pretty deep on some pretty deep issues there as well. Can you talk a little bit about some of those issues that the movie's going into?
No, totally. I listen, as I was saying, this film is meant to lose yourself in the dark. It's meant to just go along with it, like a Fellini film for kids. I always joke because it's where does the film want to take me instead of what are my expectations of this narrative, right? Or of these stories or of these references. So it's my way of doing that. And it's also my way of saying, if you look, sort of if you dig for those themes, you are going to find them. Like we were discussing earlier how, for example, there is a lot about colonization in the film, for example. There is a lot about appropriation of other cultures. For example, like the Duchess dresses in a way that is, very much performatively Asian a lot of times. But then, the first character that she sort of becomes violent again is an Asian American woman. So those kinds of things are sort of less on the surface. But what is very plain to see is how it talks about the pressures on young people that we're putting on. So I have cousins that are 12, 13, 14 years old, and they have this device in their hands that is essentially telling them that they're never going to be beautiful enough or popular enough or perfect enough, right, at the end of the day. So it was my way of telling them that even I feel that pressure when I log into my image-based social networks, I guess. And my way of telling them that they don't have to change for other people. They have to find the people that are going to love them for who they actually truly are. So that's the main thing for me. It's at the end of the day, it's about personal freedom and what is your definition of personal freedom. Doesn't matter what your parents want from you, what your partner, male or female, wants for you, or your friends even want for you. Sometimes it's what do you want to do? What do you want to become?
Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Yeah.
So, I thought this film had a lot to say about social class.
Yeah.
But hearing you talk about it right now and just hearing the personal connection relationship you had to the film, it sounds a lot like it's about someone kind of figuring out who they are, coming to terms with, becoming comfortable with themselves. I just wanted to hear you speak on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
In that when in this story, it's someone being put in a school to be reformed and become something that other people want you to become.
Yeah.
When at the end of the day, it's you figuring out what you want to be. Was that, you said growing up you didn't have the luxury to go to film school, and you might have felt like you've been put into a box. Is that what you were kind of putting into this film?
Absolutely, that is such a good question, and it's such a good way of putting it as well, because I definitely don't come from that sort of privilege of being able to just follow my dreams. It's so easy to say just do what you want, just follow your dreams, but if you don't have any money, or if your family doesn't have any contacts in that context, how are you supposed to do it? So there is a reading of the film that can also go in the sense of accumulating wealth is not the answer to those troubles either. You need to have a strong sense of self that is self-defined, and no one is going to hand that to you. No one is going to figure out your identity for you. You need to find out who you are, and also you need to understand that if you're a creator, for example, like I am regarding that question, you're going to have it tougher than other people if you don't have that extra sort of help.
Don't we know it?
Exactly.
Now, can you talk about the cinematography? Because it was just beautifully done, the shots and all that kind of stuff. Was there any influences that you had for that, or what was your direction with your cinematographer?
Interesting. So the director of photography is Josuin Chaustegui, who is a pretty well-known Spanish one. I adore him. He's from my hometown as well, which was really important to the close dialogue that we needed to have very often. He's such a soft man. I love him very much, and it was very easy to work with him. And specifically, it was very cool to see him, someone with so much experience. I have been working since before I was born, like much of the crew, just be able to absorb the references that I was sort of throwing his way and make them his. For example, we use a lot of Picnic at Hanging Rock, Daughters of the Dust, but also, as I was saying earlier, we had a ton of hard sci-fi or also classical horror, from Hammer Films, the British film company from the 1960s and 70s. I love The Abominable Dr. Fives, for example, and I would use that as a color scheme ref all the time. Also, obviously, Logan's Run is a color palette reference. But like regarding the historical references that I was mentioning in the first two, is more about like soft hues, like sort of Frederick Edwin Church, just romantic sea painting. It's just a ton of different references that could come together to form something with an approach that was, I guess, more feminine than we had seen before, perhaps, in science fiction. And I always value when people ask me about like the direction of photography or the costumes, specifically when men do it, because it's like, oh, cool, like they're curious about them. That means that they have understood the place that they have in the story, and they have understood the references that we have to like female institutionalization of like the 1950s, 1960s, but also to, previous costume designers that were important to us, such as, Eiko Ishioka, for example, who did The Cell, was very important to us. Also, contemporary designers like Alexander McQueen, Iris Van Herpen, who is a woman that does a lot of sci-fi as well as a designer. All of that is definitely there in the mix visual.
Yeah, it was just beautiful.
Thank you.
Just a beautiful world that was built.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
To tag on to that, where did you shoot this? Because the sets are unbelievable. Like, the visuals were amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Because obviously some of them were... I'd imagine some of them were soundstage, but a lot of it was on location. Where was that?
Yeah, totally. And listen, I'm a big proponent of like practical effects, and I'm a big proponent of physical sets. It's not a cliche that it like gives, and you know this as well, that it gives actors such a context to
absolutely.
know where you are, literally,
Yeah.
which is such an important part of being present, right? There's only 2 digital locations in the film, which is the opening and the closing scenes at the ballroom. That is a fully digital space that is like a green screen the size of a football field almost, with like 150 extras just like multiplied to look like there's 300, but not digitally. Like literally we'll like scoot them all over to one side and then it will be like, okay, don't move the camera, everyone go to the other side. Like it was like, there's a lot of practical effects like that mixed with really like sophisticated things.
You have a flying car in there.
Yeah, there you go.
Or hovering.
Yeah, the hover car was pretty cool.
That is, for example, that is a real car. Like, that is a real 1930s car. We just removed the wheels, but we obviously had to shoot, like, the empty plate and then the car again. And some parts of the car obviously have to be reconstructed. The flying car was an important part of the world building because it's, like, one of the few chances that we get to actually see the world outside of the island, outside of Paradise.
Right.
So that was a cool thing to do. I always wanted to do a flying car, so there we go.
That was cool. I love it. As a Back to the Future fan, I love flying cars.
Yeah, there you go. I think, we all do. We're like, Back to the Future, of course, the OGs. Anyway, so regarding the rest of it, the other digital set in the film is when you see the island from the sea, which was impossible to do, practical, because what do? Like, you build an entire island from the sea. We only had $9 million of a budget. Like, this is an independent film, believe it or not. So we had to be really careful.
Really quick, for those of you listening or watching right now, $9 million is considered shoestring, like for a major motion picture.
That's
especially for how grand this one seemed, like a great Gatsby.
Did you say
kind of
$9 million? That's it?
Yeah.
That's what's spent on a beer commercial. And you guys made an incredible film out of that.
Yeah, actually, funnily enough, it's the same budget as Logan's Run. Unadjusted to inflation. That was in the 70s.
We are breaking news right here. You had the same budget as Logan's Run, which was an inspiration for this film, a lot of it.
Yeah. That's so funny. But I have to say that, like, adjusted to inflation, it would be so much more. But that was $9 million in the 70s. Like, it was reported as like, oh my gosh, they spent $9 million in this film. That is insane. And now it's like, as you say, it's like really, really shoestring, really, really basic. So we had a lot of meetings of like, what's the cheapest option here, guys? Like, don't bullshit me. Like, just tell me, what do you want to, like, what is the cheapest one, so that I am not like the person that goes over budget here. Really honest meetings, and also really great production design team, production designer Laia Colette with an all Spanish team as well. That was it. And then the real locations, some people when they watch a film are like, oh, this is all digital, because it's such an insane sort of like brutalist.
Yeah, it's gorgeous with the arches and all that kind of stuff. Where is it? I must know.
I must go to be defrauded there.
Exactly.
I love it as well. It's a brutalist architectural studio. It's actually 2 architectural studios belonging to Javier Corbero, who is a architect of the time of the late 60s. And then like all of the lush gardens that you got, those are like 3 or 4 different gardens in the Mediterranean coast. We had, I want to say we had like 43 locations or something like that. So it's quite a lot of logistical like aspirations for a first film.
Yeah, that's, I mean, for being a first time feature for you, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, my hat's off to you. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Like,
I didn't know what I was getting into. For real. Like I was like, oh no.
How the best films are made.
she's like, I jumped in and then I was there.
Yes.
Hey, I've got a quote that I found on IMDb.
Yeah.
You know, the ever resourceful IMDb that you said. It said, women, myself included, want to direct science fiction. They want to direct action films. They want to direct creature features. These worlds' characters are most memorable traits are normatively feminine. They drive to care, or their drive to care, their world's characters, their drive to care, their passion, their willingness to adapt to survive. And whether your story is set in a parallel universe or at the 7-Eleven around the corner, without empathy for your characters at a universal emotional core in each sequence, you've got no movie. Why do you love science fiction?
As I was saying earlier, it's all a family affair. Like we just love, you know.
Our
films
audience
of
loves
sorts.
that you love science fiction. This is
cool.
great.
That's awesome. No,
Yeah.
it's really a family thing. Like my mom was genuinely a science fiction nerd, and my dad loves like just social realism stuff. So I guess put them together and we just watched Children of Men a bunch of times when I was growing up.
Oh, there you go.
That's the reason. Yeah.
That's a trippy movie. I found myself watching Paradise Hills, and for about the first third of the film, each new scene that pops up, I just found myself going, what the like, what is going on? Like,
Thank you.
But it was cool, and like when she wakes up in the second scene, when she wakes up and she's in the robe and everything, and then I was like, does she have poop stains on her robe? What is that? But I don't know if that's what it was or not.
Don't say that. I was gonna get upset. Cut
I'm
that
sorry.
off. It's a
Yeah.
live stream, but cut that off.
My apologies.
Just a little dirt.
No, it was just like to see the transition from her waking up in the dirty robe and like just like stumbling through, and then men in white coats come and like take her down. And then the next scene when she's got like the purple hair, which I'm not spoiling anything, it's on the poster, but she's got like the I guess it's purplish, pinkish purplish hair, and like the what's the like the Lolita dresses that they're wearing.
It's kind of Shiro Lolita, I guess you would call it.
But it was really cool. One thing I wanted to ask about the music in the film.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
I was wondering about that.
Not simply the score, but like when they go and they do like the karaoke night and that sort of thing. That's the only reference I have for karaoke night.
Karaoke night,
Was that, I was not familiar with it. Was that something that was original for the film, or was that music that had already existed prior to it?
Yeah, we composed it for the film.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the first time in, I want to say like a decade, in which Emma sings in a film, especially an original song. And also Eiza Gonzalez, who obviously was a teen idol back in Mexico, it's the first time that she's singing in a film also in quite some time. So it was really interesting to like compose a song for both of them that could have like two sides. In the opening is like really melancholy and dramatic, and then when actually in this queer relationship that they have, when Amarna sings it for Uma, it's such like a sweet, romantic, beautiful moment. I co-wrote those lyrics with Nacho and with Brian, and I just wanted them to have that lyrical sort of moment. And the references for the rest of the music, they're very electronic, analogic synthesizers. Like we love Delia Derbyshire, who composed one of the first themes for Doctor Who, the opening theme. We love Morg Garson, for the BBC
right there.
in the 1960s as well.
Doctor Who guy.
We also love Morg Garson, who is a French composer from the 1970s, who did an album that was all like electronic synthesizers, like the ones that our composer bought just to make this film, which is amazing. Analogic synthesizers. But at the same time, he composed an album called Music to Play Your Plants. So yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, like the music was amazing. Like, I mean, all throughout, the people singing, even the score and all that, it really kind of tied in with all the visuals just beautifully. And what we're also wondering is just about this new upcoming film that you're doing, the new Scarlet film.
Sure. So Scarlet, I want to keep on working in the genre space, like science fiction, fantasy, horror, terror, for as long as they will let me. So that is that as well. It's a genre film, and it's a queer historical feature, and I can't really say anything else,
All right.
because it's Netflix.
Well, as we wrap up, whatever the final, we have just a couple final questions. Like, Ben, did you have a final question? So sorry.
No, I just have some comments.
Okay, final comments then.
Well, yeah. I just thought for my wife and I, we just thought it was really refreshing just to see, because we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. I didn't know really much about this film before they're like, hey, we're having the director on. I'm like, cool. And then they sent me a Vimeo link. And like, I was like, oh, no. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, it's coming out in theaters. I was like, oh, okay. So it's like a theater thing. So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But then we watched it and we were just so impressed, and we were like, I don't know what this is going to be. And then we watched it and we were just like, that was awesome. Just like I said, visually stunning. The acting was great. Just the visual effects when they were applied were really fantastic.
The necklace thing, that was pretty cool.
And absolutely. And then to also have a film with very solidly written queer representation without it being like, oh yeah, we're gonna make a movie about queer people in your face, but it was just presented as part of the story as
I would do that as well.
Yeah. but I liked that it was just part of the story, and you just accept it as part of the story. It's not something that's supposed to be different. It's just presented as this is just part of the story and it's normal, which it should be, and that's what I appreciate about it. And so.
And it was a beautiful part of the story.
A very beautiful part of the story too. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I just enjoyed it a lot.
Cool. Thank you so much. And like as a queer person, I appreciate what you're saying, because it is a normal part of my life.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's about as revolutionary as doing my grocery shopping.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I'm like, why should it be any different for anyone else? And
Precisely.
I feel like happily, I'm glad that the world is changing in that sense, and I'm glad that we can like now make a young adult film that is genre, that is for a big audience. But that at the same time, it has that sort of representation. That's important to me. And you were talking earlier about how like that quote of mine, which says that like genre film, like some of those characters have feminine traits. But here's the thing, like my screenwriters are men, and I really trusted Nacho to sort of bring my point of view into the story. I really love him, have known him for like 7 years now. He's written some insane genre films that I love. Everyone watch Colossal if you haven't, because you're in for a treat.
Yeah.
And Hathaway like playing a giant monster. And like there's this tremendous tradition of men directing extraordinary feature films that are in the genre space. And when I talk about like you women stepping into that world, I just want to say like it. Feminism is the equality between men and women, right? Like it's supposed to be side by side. Like there is no struggle in that sense between us. And it was really important to me to like work with creators of all genders. Some of them happen to be women, some of them happen to be men. But yeah, that is kind of what I always sort of want to highlight, because sometimes it feels like you need to say this extra thing. So it's important.
As we wrap, and this is my final question.
Sure.
When we first got the film and watched the film, and the three of us were talking, yes, we need to wrap the show, but like as three of us, because we saw the film, we said, we have three straight white guys coming in to sit with you, to talk with you about this film. Well, you know what? That was perfect. I want you to, if you could say one thing, because I think that maybe some of the audience might be saying, oh wait, that film's this or this film's that, and they might be not want to see it, or they might want to see it.
Yeah.
I think the film has something for everybody. If you wanted to say something to the entire audience, to us specifically about why would people like us get from this film?
Sure. Actually, it's funny because the audience that like has enjoyed it the most, and we count this because we do have the statistics, is actually men that are like 40 and over. Not to give it away.
Anyway,
So that was surprising to us, but at the same time, it doesn't shock me because I was really careful to put something of myself in every character, be it male or female. The worst villain in the story is a 40-something-year-old woman. The most positive influence in the protagonist is, her dad, who is a 50-year-old white man. So I don't think that we have to be radical in the sense of when you have a film with both men and women, some of them are going to be horrible people and some of them are going to be wonderful people. It just so happens that I wanted to bring more women into the story, so some of the women are amazing, some of them are terrible.
I would argue her mother is as much of a bad person.
Yes, as well.
Yes.
But there's bad people, good people of all genders. Yeah. So it's just my way of saying, no matter who you are, you're going to love it, and you're going to find someone to relate to, and that was part of my intention and my love for this story.
Alice, thank you so much for coming on this week. Everybody go out and see Paradise Hills. You guys will love it. You can find us on theconguyderek.com. Where can we find you?
I am at BenKliewer. That's at BenKliewer on all social media.
And you can find me on Twitter at CheeseOnCouch and also on theconguyderek.com. Check out our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the social medias.
Alice, where can we find?
I'm Alice Watt in Instagram and Twitter. That's
The film Paradise Hills in theaters now and on digital and demand November 1st. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or